Hello, everyone. I'm Roger Love, and I'm excited to be here because I don't just randomly go live every day of the week. As a matter of fact, I pretty much only go live once a month, where I am doing our Speakers Guild VIP membership, where I pick a subject and then we do Q&A, and it's fantastic. But other days, there are subjects rolling around in my head, and I figured, why don't we just start to go live more just for a short number of minutes? And I'll introduce a topic. Today, I've brought an amazing guest to share with me in that topic. You can ask us questions in the chat. I brought in Joe DeMaria, who is the CEO of my company, VoicePlace, because today I wanted to talk about business. And more specifically, with regard to me and my own life and my own business, there have been times when I felt like I had achieved all I could achieve. I'm 17 years old. I have all of these famous students. I am under the umbrella of my voice teacher, and I'm thinking that I am at the peak of the mountain and there is no other mountain. I stayed at that place for years until I realized there was another mountain. I had to go on my own and started my own company. And then years and years of that. Some years ago, I hit another ceiling. And though I was working with so many famous people and on so many projects, I still wanted to achieve more from the business. I still wanted to reach more people. And I started looking at the landscape of what everyone else was doing as a voice coach. And I could see other voice teachers in Los Angeles who also had some celebrities and had a reputation. And I saw what they were charging. They were charging about $300 an hour. And I said, well, if that's the case, I'm going to charge thousands of dollars an hour, not because I had more celebrities than they did, but because I don't work by the hour. Yes, I might fit my sessions into an hour-ish format, but I work by the experience. For me, it was all about what can I do to create an elite experience that would be life-changing so that when I worked with somebody, it rose above voice lessons. It rose above how much they were paying or how much I was charging, and I would make the experience one of a kind, life-changing. So many of you are stuck where you are. You want to charge higher fees. You want to get more clients. You want to sell more products, whatever your business is, wherever you're stuck at whatever height of your business. I just want you to know that it's always good to learn new strategies, new ideas. And some 6 months ago, 8 months ago, when VoicePlace again had reached a ceiling, I brought in Joe, who I'm going to introduce to you right now. Joe DeMaria is a CEO in the past who has taken companies that were this successful and made them this successful time and time again because of strategies that he has. And I've been learning from Joe. Not only, I'm a teacher who doesn't necessarily teach to work. I'm a teacher now who teaches to learn. So at every lesson, I'm trying to learn from my students just as much as I'm teaching. And I've learned so much from Joe over the past 6 months to 12 months that I just wanted to share a little bit of Joe with you today. So come on in, Joe. Welcome.
Hey, Roger. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to do this with you.
Great. I just figured we could, in a handful of minutes, share some knowledge, share some experience that might make someone today at this moment realize, wow, that's a great idea. I'm going to try it tomorrow and have results, feel better about themselves, feel better about their business, feel better about the future. Times are crazy. especially in like the expert business, for example. Years ago, people were coming to events. They were spending thousands of dollars to come to an event. I could sell an event for $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, spend 3 or 4 days with me. All of those events sort of tanked. Even the highest level speakers were now giving away seats just so that they would have an audience full of people that they might sell a product that was even more reasonable. So the whole experts business has changed. Business in general has changed. COVID changed so many businesses. We're all looking for new ways to rebuild ourselves and our businesses better than they were PC, pre-COVID, better than what we did after COVID when the doors were open and we were suddenly able to go back to things that we were doing before, to exceed those things, to exceed the ideas that we came in that period, year or so after COVID. It's time to reinvent again, and you're the perfect person to do that. So, what do you mean when you say you help people break the glass ceiling?
Well, I think a lot of it is, if you look traditionally at, let's say, the last 15 years of business, which is where, most of the folks we know started. Most businesses never make it to 10 years. So if you see a business owner around you, you can pretty much guess that they started within the last 10 years. If you look at the way business went for the last decade, it kind of pushed everybody towards this churn and burn mentality of grow at all costs. And, you're going to sell this little product to this product to this product. And then eventually you're going to sell the big thing, and the big thing's where the money's at. And, the thing that I find over and over again when I go into companies and lead these kind of turnarounds and takeovers is sort of a fundamental misunderstanding of the machine that they were trying to build, right? So it drives me nuts. But if I'm going to oversimplify everything for the sake of oversimplifying. But if I were to say your business was like a factory, and every month, every day, every minute, the things coming out of the other end of your machine, what you're producing, the results you're getting, if those are not something you're happy with, putting more stuff into the front of the machine doesn't solve that problem. It just makes more stuff that isn't the right thing for you. Okay. And the reason this happens so much, I think, is because, frankly, in the kind of experts business, and there's been a lot of influential folks, but they've all kind of taught everyone how to be very same. So the only differentiator for most of these businesses we see is how much money you can spend on advertising. Well, obviously that is a ceiling for most people that are just starting out, or even people that have been around a long time and just don't want to take the risk of breaking off a, couple $100,000 expense for something like advertising. In other words, fundamentally, the models we choose don't always fit our goal for the business we're building. And those kinds of mismatches can't be corrected cheaply. So a lot of the time, it's an expensive project and we throw money at it instead of realigning what the business is built to do. That's kind of what we're seeing in COVID, or post-COVID right now, is just a realignment of what these businesses are supposed to do.
On any given day, I wake up and have a good 3 to 4 new insights or ideas of where the business should go. When you're trying to create a new strategic vision, how do people like me put the ones that I shouldn't be trying to implement in the drawer and put the one that I should be implementing one at a time in the burner and crank up the fire?
I'm going to oversimplify that again in saying, the reason why people have all these different things, all these different irons in the fire, a million things that they're supposed to be doing, and they want to do a webinar on one hand, they want to write a book on another, they want to start doing lives every day, they want to do all these different things that they see other successful people doing. Largely, what I would consider those things to be are tactics. Okay. So what these folks tend to lack is a natural strategy. So there's a reason and a filter that needs to be in place for what kind of company we're building and what tactics we are going to employ. I've talked to you about this many times because you are famously just like able to create a million different opportunities, and everyone else's ability to actually land those things is sometimes a limiter, right? Just from a time sake. So the filter we look at is, what is the end result? What do we want this company to do for us? If we want to build some massive mega brand and we want to be acquired by Virgin in 10 years, fine, then maybe some social interactions, maybe doing like higher profile events and public relations, and that kind of stuff puts us in the public eye. It sort of fits our long-term goal. What might not fit your long-term goal is a postcard marketing campaign. What might not fit your goal is maybe a webinar. But conversely, if you said, hey, I want to build a, I don't know, $1 million a year info business because I am unemployable and I just want to sit back and enjoy my life and keep it easy, and I never want to have more than one person on my team, cool. Then it doesn't really make sense for you to go do a bunch of PR. It doesn't really make sense for you to do these wide open, massive social media campaigns, because the end goal is what we have to service, right? We have to hang our tactics off of a strategy that suits us instead of dabbling in a million different places and trying on a million different marketing department strategies. It just doesn't work that way.
I call what I do the shiny squirrel. I'll wake up and I'll have this image of a shiny squirrel running this way to do this thing. And I think I'll have to follow that squirrel because it's certainly an idea that sounds very interesting at that moment. It's good. So I remember hearing a story about the guy that ran Apple, Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs was sort of like the same guy would wake up with 10 different ideas. And he would go to the people that were implementing the ideas at Apple. And finally, his CEO had told him, I want you to keep coming up with those 10 ideas a day. It's just, I want you to put them all in a drawer at your house. And when I say we have the bandwidth to do one new idea, I want you to look into that drawer at that time, take out the one you think is the best, because bringing them to work every day is too many squirrels. Keep them in your drawer until we have the bandwidth. Years ago, this idea of monetizing your mastery seemed easier, especially in the expert space. It's like you were an expert, so it was very easy. You just had to convince people that you were the expert in that space. But it's sort of different now, because it's like the record business. There were only X number of major labels. If you wanted to be a successful recording artist, you had to sign with one of those labels, because only they had distribution into the record stores. So the record labels help define who the public should listen to, because those were the only artists they signed and the only artists that they would put in this record stores. Now the internet is out. Now everyone's an expert. Everyone on social media thinks they're an expert. The word expert and the word master and mastery has now moved up from where it was up here on a higher mountain to now it's somehow subterraneous. Everyone's a master. Everyone's trying to master what they're good at. I'm a master at applying eye makeup. That makes me a master. I should get millions of people watch me put my eye makeup on in the morning, and then I should have my own makeup brand. So it's harder and harder to monetize your mastery when the when the bar of being an expert and a master is so low in comparison. What are your ideas on that? How a new way of thinking about what you offer so that you are monetizing your mastery?
Well, I think fundamentally the issue is not that it's been easier to become a master, it's been easier to claim that you're a master. If you have a modicum of success selling houses in Detroit, you suddenly put on your website that you're a master real estate broker and blah, 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 blah. And you think you deserve to have an academy where thousands of people learn from you. And it's partially a symptom of the last decade where everybody wanted to be a guru because it looked, looked great, looked easy, just monetize my brain. That sounds fun. But the reality is it's not necessarily that it's harder to be a master, harder to stand out as a master. It's really more about using your credibility more effectively. So it's more about the way we network, the way we connect with people, the way we have our conversations. Those things help us stand out and build a reputation. Whereas in the past, we thought, hey, you know what? Shoot. I mean, I remember 2012. We were getting leads for 5 cents, 10 cents. So we would churn and burn through thousands and thousands of people because the economics made sense. Now you're spending $20, $25. So, the way that we have to make these businesses viable is totally different. Now, I'll add to that one thing, which is part of it is a business model. The traditional things that made the experts industry business model work was cheap products, cheap advertising. And you would see cheap products and cheap advertising go wonderfully together, where I can make a PDF and I can, buy a conversion for a quarter. And now I have the opportunity to use upsells and sell them all this stuff. And you've seen Russell Brunson, and everybody's kind of funnelized the world, but that's not necessarily how businesses actually work. And so what ended up happening is we've sort of democratized down. We've essentially taken this locus of incredible experts that were originally providing what they were doing, and we've opened the door and let everybody in. So the sea of noise is much, much higher. And the models that even the great experts were using no longer work because they can't even make a difference anymore. So that's why you see this big shift. You said, hey, we used to sell these really expensive event tickets. We used to do all these different things. You're seeing all of these experts changing their business models and frankly scrambling because they're losing millions and millions of dollars that used to be, slam dunk money. They didn't have to think about it. They would just jump up and there it is, super easy. But you're seeing it happen all across the industry. And again, it's because we are pushing people to, they're saying, hey, I don't like what my machine's doing. How do we figure out more ways to stuff crap in the front of it to get more stuff that we don't like? And that ends up being the issue of the experts industry right now. It's rather than, hey, let's look at our actual machine. Let's look at what we are trying to accomplish with this company, because that will narrow and filter our focus extremely, which means it's much less expensive to run that business. But also, there's just a much clearer brief. It's much simpler. It's easier. It's more lucrative. It's more predictable, more sustainable, more profitable. And that might sound very boring, but that's kind of my favorite thing, is just figuring out, what's happening in the market. How do we realign what we're doing? How do we connect with people more effectively? And how do we make the whole thing simpler?
Yeah. Seems like we've gone from a master expert saying, what do I want to give, to an economy where it's, what do people want? What do people really want? What do they need? And then it's not, what do I know and what I can teach? It's, what do they want and how can I help them climb that mountain? Tony Robbins has been my student for probably 30 years. He always would say, that if you keep doing what you're doing, your business will never grow past where it is. And unless you change yourself and you change what you're doing, that's your only chance of your business moving to the next level. You've worked with so many companies and helped them scale up. You have a program called Catapult, which literally condenses what you've done in the last 15 years and made it accessible, made it teachable to people who want to literally break the ceiling like I did when I brought you in. And from what I've learned about this program, because I still have a lot to learn from you, and I look forward to that every day, every conversation that we have. What I've learned is that you used to charge a lot of money for this program. And when I met you and when I understood that you had this program, and the more we've gotten to know each other, I asked you, would you do a program with me, taking everything that you know about Catapult and your strategies and everything I know about voice, and could we merge and do something very cost effective and very timely, because people are desperate now. People are desperate now to pay their taxes, to pay their expenses. They want so much more. And you and I both know that we could help them get to a happier, more productive place. So I'm happy to announce that we are going to do our first joint Joe's Catapult program, where Joe is going to take each person through the strategies to break the glass ceiling. And I'm going to be along for the learning ride, but also for the teaching ride, to help them attach voice, presentation, influence, confidence, everything that I teach to that. So I'm excited about the program that we're gonna start. It's coming up soon, right?
October 21st is the kickoff there.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm excited. Why do you call it Catapult?
So
Other than
originally
the normal answer.
Well, so I always tell folks, it's kind of a gotcha question, but I always ask people what industry they're in when I first meet them. And they'll say, "Oh, I'm a dentist. Oh, I'm a day trader. Oh, I'm in M&A. I'm blah 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 blah." And I always say that, really you're in the leverage business. It doesn't really matter what industry you're in, what your job title is, what it says on the door when you walk into the building. None of that stuff matters. What makes amazing performers, whether they work in a company or they own their own business or they spend all their time on stage or they're just starting out, what makes them successful is not necessarily knowing all the tools or all the millions of things they could do. It's understanding what they use to build the most leverage possible. So I came up with Catapult as a name for this because really the program Catapult is about how I build leverage into companies, right? So for the most part, I mean, you actually kind of make my point for me, and I love you to death for it, because you said, hey, we're moving into a new world where it's about what they want, not necessarily what we bring. And I would argue with you that was always the world we lived in. But we got into a bubble with internet marketing that said that we could just throw stuff out there and people would come because it was cheap enough and we would find the right people eventually. But part of what I think, what's the difference that makes the difference is really understanding first what your target market wants. So Catapult, we teach, how you actually go and do your market research. And I'm very well known for my market research strategies. I built an AI company around doing market research for, folks like us. And, understanding exactly what your target market wants gives you the leverage to build the right offer instead of going the other way around. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna invent an offer and hopefully they like it.
Yeah,
it's backwards. So if we go back to the 60s and the 70s, and every entrepreneur today, their goal should be to build something that would have been, successful 50 years ago without all the trappings of technology and all these, what are kind of crutches. And those are things that are very simple. It's going back and understanding your business model. It's going back and setting the vision. It's going back and doing the research to understand what your customers and clients want. It's understanding how to create leverage in relationships and build real arbitrage. Those are the simplest things in the world once you know how to do them, but they're arts that have been largely lost because all these folks in the last 10 years, like I said, all these folks, they never learned how to run a traditional business. Their whole model is, oh my gosh, I like what Russell's doing. Oh my gosh, I like what Tony Robbins is doing. And that's not a model.
It's a copycat model.
Right.
It's a copycat model.
And you don't know anything that's going on behind the scenes to make it work, or if it's even working, which is, you and I have talked about this at length. A lot of the things that people are copying right now are strategies that do not work. They worked 10 years ago, but people are still selling the product because people will still buy the product. That sets no one up for success.
One of the things I learned a long time ago, because I grew up performing. So as a singer, it was all about performing. I would open my mouth, I would perform, I would try to move people emotionally. And then as I got older, I was like, oh, well, okay, how do I turn this into a business? Well, just keep performing. You keep getting better at performing. But what I had actually created was I was performing as a singer, then I was performing as a voice coach, then I was performing as a keynote speaker, then I was performing as the head of a company. And it's still in the moment performances.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have met you when I was 17 years old, you and I would have gone public with 10 companies by now, because I wasn't thinking when I was young and exit strategy. I was thinking beginning of the lesson, end of the lesson. I was thinking beginning of the experience with a client, end of the experience with a client. I wasn't thinking ahead. Yes, it's nice when I was saving money. Yes, it was nice. I was thinking about ways of building wealth, but I didn't have the strategies early enough to think what's the exit strategy. And I think I think a lot of the people that come to you and I, they're not good at planning an exit strategy because they're so busy in trying to create a creation and a performance strategy that they don't have time to understand the exit strategy. But what you've taught me is, what's the exit strategy? And then how do you work backwards to make the baby? Now you got to make the baby, but you always have the exit strategy in mind. So I think that's something that people will really appreciate with the Catapult system. And next time when we do this, I encourage any of you that are listening or watching now to ask questions, and we'll be able to help you with that. If you are more,
I see Tom in the comments here. I was just wondering what industry Tom's in, if Tom has any questions about this, because it's I think personally, you end up in this self-defeating loop of just following trends, but you never zoom out and actually understand what is the machine you're building. And you made the point for me there, obviously, which is, how are we going to build a company that we love, that we're proud of, that we're happy with? We don't know the end goal, right? How do you plan a road trip if you don't know where you're going? It's kind of a silly thing. So before we ever start, I see Tom as an emerging speaker and coach. He's a former TV journalist, pharmaceutical rep, trainer. I love that. Okay, so Tom, you're a perfect case for this, because there is so much targeting the Toms of the world right now. and just trying to convince you that what you need is just one funnel, or it's trying to convince you that the secret to your undying and everlasting legacy is you need to do this webinar, but with my secret strategy of how to structure a webinar. And the reality is none of that is true. It's fundamentally they're selling you tactics, because if they sold you strategy, you would be successful and you wouldn't need whatever tactic they're selling now. So fundamentally, the first thing that you should do when you say, hey, I'm starting a business, is not, oh my gosh, what's the name? Oh man, what is the offer I can make, or what makes me different or special, or what's my brand? None of that stuff matters in the first step. What matters is, what are you hiring the thing to do? So for a Tom, right? Tom, I would say, okay, you are making this transition. And yeah, there's coaches coaching coaches on how to become coaches. Yeah, I completely agree.
I love that comment. I mean, that's so spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it's when I look at a Tom, I would say, well, if Tom's goal, his end goal of a company was to have 1,000 employees and get acquired, then the business model we choose, the way we set our structure, the way we network, the way we build offers, the way we understand our market is totally different on day one than if Tom just said, hey man, I want a company here that'll make me $1 million a year. I don't want to have to go into the office. I want to hang out with my family. I want to play golf 6 times a week, like whatever that is. Well, that's very different. You wouldn't want 1,000 employees in that company, Tom. You wouldn't want all the complexity of trying to go seek mergers and acquisitions and get bought out by some mega company. You would start with the end in mind, and then we would build backwards and say, this is the exact system we need in order to be successful. And that little bit of an impact filter, which shout out to Dan Sullivan on the impact filter, but that little bit of an impact filter is night and day. It saves entrepreneurs that are just starting out, or entrepreneurs that have been in business for 20 years. It can save them hundreds and hundreds of hours every year chasing their tail on whatever the latest and greatest guru is telling you need to be successful.
I think Tom should write a book on cool sayings, because he's got, as a journalist, he's got a way with words.
Absolutely.
And I want to, Joe and I both have to go, but I want to share with you again that we'll be doing some more of these impromptu things, and we want to always talk about subjects that are important to each of you out there in cyberland. And if you feel like you've hit this ceiling, even though you might be successful already, but if you feel like there are new mountains that you see that you didn't see before you got to the top of the mountain that you're on now. I sometimes call that stuck at the top, along with my student and friend Wayne Dyer, who wrote a book called Stuck at the Top. This idea, you make plans based on what you think is the top of the mountain, and then you work your butt off to get there. You get to the top of the mountain, and from the top of the mountain, you don't spend a lot of time being happy there. Once you're at the top of the mountain, you suddenly look into the distance and you see another mountain, and then, wow, you have a decision to make. Should I try to get off this mountain, climb down a little bit so that I could get to the base of the other mountain and climb higher? Because who knows what's on the top of that mountain. So if those of you that are listening or watch this later on when we're not live, and you feel like you're already stuck at the mountain that you thought would be the one that led you to ultimate happiness, ultimate joy, ultimate gratitude, ultimate success, a legacy, and you think that there's another mountain that you might see faintly off in the distance, but would like help getting there, the Catapult program that Joe and I are going to do is a small group of people that we're going to take through a 6-week program. We're going to charge 1/3 of what Joe normally charges without me even in it, to take care of this small group of people. So if you're interested at all, schedule a call to talk to somebody at Team Love and follow the link that's in the chat. But I hope today we just started to create a relationship. I'm a relationship person. I've been married for 3 decades. I want to have the same discussion. I want to have similar discussions with Joe 3 decades from now. That's why I'm taking all of my supplements. And I want to have relationships, and we want to have relationships with people that we can help to learn the things that we've learned that created the joy that we have, the prosperity that we have, the gratitude that we have.
Right.
So Joe, thanks for spending a half an hour with me today and just being the Joe that I love and that I know. And I learned something from you every time we meet, and I can't wait for more people to learn more.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. We'll have to jump back on.
Awesome. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. We'll see you soon. Roger Love, Joe DeMaria.
Bye, guys.
Talk to you soon.